Lights, camera, action.
Okay, we're starting this review off. It's spoiler free, entirely spoiler free. I just want to talk about Scream, what I thought about it, what I thought about the movie. Did I like it? Did I not like it? I'm going to talk about it in the most vague ass way possible because I don't want to spoil the experience of Scream for those who haven't seen it yet. First movie of the year, man, and I'm excited. Here we go. Let's start 22 off. Scream 2022, man, so, to give some backstory and some context, Scream, the original, is my favorite horror movie of all time. It was my first horror movie. I discovered it, well, I didn't discover it. I found out about Scream at the age of, at a very young age. But again, I just kind of saw it as a horror movie. I was a kid who didn't really watch horror movies growing up until I reached the age of 13. Right before I got into high school, I was browsing Netflix one day and I came across the original Scream. And I watched it and I just fell in love with this film. Scream, the original Scream, is one of those movies that has inspired my love of film. It is one of those films that I do think back of as top 3, what movies inspired you to want to be in storytelling for your life. Scream's one of the top 5. It's in there easily. It's always one of the first films that pops into my mind. I think it is a masterclass in horror storytelling, thrilling storytelling, story of trauma with Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott. I think she's a brilliant character. I also really love that they were able to blend this emotional character-driven story within a murder mystery that was also fascinating, meta, clever, and commentated on horror formula that was popular and everywhere at the time in the 90s. But yet it does it in a way that's timeless to where if you rewatch the original Scream now, you're still going to relate to the teenagers that are in the movie. You're still going to relate to the characters that are in it, and you're still going to find the humor in it very hilarious and topical if you're a movie fanatic, if you're just a horror movie person in general, or you're just a general fan of good comedic timing mixed with horrific scenes that juxtapose really well with each other. Scream 1, masterclass. Scream 2 was a movie I think was a solid sequel. Scream 2, again, I think it does expand on the elements of Scream 1 really well, and I think it's a great sequel. Definitely not as good as the original because you can't strike that magic twice. I did like Scream 2 a lot. I think it's a very underrated sequel, and I do think it's gotten better as the years have progressed with that movie. And Scream 3 is my least favorite. I can't stand it. I just didn't like how it kind of did certain things and changed the context of Scream 1. That kind of stuff bothered me as a fan of that original series, and the stuff just didn't work for me with the way they changed it. It was also a lot more tame than Scream 1 and 2 because of the fact that it came out around the time the tragic Columbine shootings took place. So that movie did face a lot of censoring. That Scream 4 came back years later and that wasn't under that same control. That's why I actually like Scream 4 a lot more, is because it feels like a nice return to form. And I thought Scream 4 was a very clever sequel in the way it expanded on characters and linked it to the original cast while respecting that legacy and not distracting with the new characters to a point where it hurts legacy characters that we've grown to love from Scream 1. So I was really worried about Scream 2022. And this movie, again, it starts off, and I gotta say, it does a great job at getting you hooked into these new characters. Unfortunately, Wes Craven, director of the original series, has passed away. Horror legend, may he rest in peace. Thankfully, I can say in my vague review, my spoiler-free review, that I do think this movie was made with care and passion for Wes Craven. And it does feel like it was made by a bunch of friends who got a budget and were like, let's just make a fun Scream movie and just see what we can do with it. I really dug certain aspects while I didn't love other aspects. My problem is I can't talk about my problems with this movie without spoilers. I just can't. My 3 main issues that stop me from loving this film I can't talk about without spoilers, so I'm not going to talk about them here. But I gotta say, I don't love this movie. I think there is really cool elements in it. I think there are great ideas. I don't really buy fully all of them, and I'm not going to spoil why, because I think that's just something people need to experience and watch the movie for themselves. But luckily, what I can talk about in terms of positives is all the stuff that I liked. I can talk about all the stuff I liked without context. So, the new cast, freaking awesome. I love the new cast of these characters. They're so fun and energetic for the most part. I think what's really fun is they have even scenes that do clever callbacks to the original Scream with these new friends, but it never distracted me to a point like something like a Force Awakens or a Matrix Resurrections was, where we're literally taking and stripping exact scenes from the original like film. But the way it did it was, it felt like a loving callback while getting us engrossed in these new characters and getting to know them as well. And I really dug that this movie definitely had a hard balancing act to follow with that, and I thought it really treaded that line really well. My favorite of the new cast was definitely Mindy. You know, we always have those, I guess, every Scream movie has had like that voice that discusses what the rules are. The way Mindy, the new character, kind of breaks those rules down, she instantly became my favorite character of the movie. And that's all I'll say is like she was easily my favorite addition. She was cool, smart, funny, really hilarious, and she's only a side character, but I freaking loved her, and I just loved every scene she was in, and she felt like that link to the original Scream in this new cast that just oozed the energy of Scream 1. And that's all I'll say about it. I really loved Mindy's character, and that she was my favorite. She's not even one of the main characters. She was my favorite of the movie, though. I gotta say, Tara as the new main lead and Melissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter, they're really solid new main characters for a Scream film. And I think what they do with the sort of backstory and what they do to kind of bring them into the fold of the series is clever. You kind of have to do some mathematical hoops for a second. I can see they had to work their way around incorporating this, but I like ultimately where it went. For the most part, again, there are certain things involving the main character that I'm not going to get into without spoilers, but there are parts of her character that do bother me in a sense and take me out of the movie. But I think overall, for a lead and for someone bringing you along for this film, she works. And of course, we got to talk about Ghostface. Ghostface is a dick in this movie, and I really, really love the playful nature that they enhance in this one, because the other Scream films, you get more of that, like Scream 4 especially, you get a lot of the payoff with those kills with, like, you know, the closet sequence. That is one of the most tense moments in the Scream series, and it kind of just hits you like a truck. This movie does have moments like that, and I really appreciated that, especially with Ghostfaces. They really play up the anticipation of the kills more so, and I think they let certain scenes and, like, quiet moments breathe more than Scream 1 through 4 did, where you have certain scares where the anticipation of the scare is what's playing with you. And I like that this movie kind of took more of the approach of letting the anticipation of a kill or a scare really mess with you as an audience member, and I thought that was really clever. I also really loved how this movie, more so I think than even the Scream sequels did, plays with the paranoia of the mystery of who the killers are. And I really like how a big point of the mystery, and I actually even wish the movie did more of this, sadly it doesn't, but I wish it explored more of this, is I really love when they were exploring how paranoid these characters were and how all the friends would get together in this room, accusations start going out. I wish they kind of played with that more and really had us, for more of the movie, on the edge of the seat, like, wait a minute, it could be really any one of us. Because I love when a movie can make me second guess myself over and over and over again, and I thought Scream 1 is again, perfect example of doing that, and I think this one starts to get there. However, I don't think they marinate in it enough to really let that paranoia sink in as an audience member for me. And I wish they could have kind of played with that a little more. And you'll see what I mean when it comes up in the movie. I really wish they expanded on that kind of element even more. And I wish the third act of the film kind of lasted a little longer in that regard. The killings, like I said, when they do happen, there's kind of an escalation with them, and I really dug that. The movie escalates. The kills get more and more intense and more visceral and more real feeling as the film goes on. I like that this movie kind of escalated the killings, and I thought that was really neat. And I also appreciated the use of the legacy characters in the movie and where they were placed in it. It feels kind of like a more organic approach to them being involved in this story. I will warn you, as like my fellow Scream heads out there, this is definitely the least Sidney Prescott related movie of the Scream series. She's definitely support. The legacy characters are support in this movie, and straight up support. And I think if you go in knowing that, you'll have a more smoother experience with it, because you'll be more inclined to just get attached to these new characters and hopefully get to like them and do that. And I like how they did what they could to respect the legacy characters for the most part. And I'll get into that in my spoiler talk. But, yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. If you're a Scream fan, go watch it. I do have problems with it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there are some issues I have, but I do like. Also, the movie's meta commentary is really, really good. That was when the movie started getting up for me. Is like there's a point in the film where they start talking about the meta conversation starts coming into play, and when it does, it feels so refreshing and so fun. I love the conversation on sequels, the rules of sequels, remakequels, and all that stuff, and the way they do that and incorporate that with a certain character. And I think that was really clever, and that was when the movie really picked up for me. That was my favorite part of the movie easily. I think that's what I had the most fun with. Yeah, Scream nails a lot of things, sure. Scream also does a lot of things. I think subjectively, for me as a Scream fan, there are small decisions in this movie that I'm not going to talk about here that do detract for me and really bring the movie down a few pegs. But it all has to do with spoiler territory that I just can't get into. Like I've said several times in this video, I'm repeating myself at this point. The point is, I like the movie. Go watch it. I'll explore my flaws with it and why I don't think it's the best of these sequels. But again, I'll get into that in my spoiler talk. Go watch Scream 2022. It's a fun time. Yeah. What's your favorite scary movie?